Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Meta Update. I am Joshua Joshi Howard. Today we're going to be talking about the stuff that happened over this last weekend. It was not quite as large of a weekend as the one we had the previous week. However, there were still several very large events going around. Not as much teams going on, but a lot of big singles events, including the Games Workshop Palm Springs that did just happen. There were, of course, a bunch of different events, and we're going to be showing you a bunch of lists. Because we still have so many lists, I'm going to be continuing to break them up into a couple categories for you guys to make things a little bit easier for myself. This one shouldn't be over an hour long, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was getting close. So let's go ahead and get right into it. To start off with, we do have 44 of 52 singles players were playing Grizzled this weekend. There were also a bunch of teams events as well that I won't be showing quite as much of. But this weekend, overall in singles, Garn had a 53.1% win rate, which was even higher than the previous weekend of 52.7. We were 142 wins, 125 losses, and 6 draws, which is a lot. Guard normally is not this high. And we had an average elo of 1555 with a median elo of 1537, which does mean that on average, like, the median was pretty high this weekend. The average is not, like, absurdly high, but the median was definitely pretty high. We don't tend to see medians this high unless we're getting a lot of people, like, hopping over to the faction, or it is a relatively small weekend overall. Couple warning signs. I'm getting a lot of warning signs right now in terms of guard is very, very strong. I don't expect that we will get targeted. Like, if guard is the only thing that is too strong to warrant an emergency nerf or an emergency patch, we probably wouldn't cause that. We're very good, but we're not, like, ruining the way that the game is generally played. We just play the game extraordinarily well. However, because the Catan all exist, I would not be particularly surprised if when they went in to change Catan, they went in and changed us. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, there are a lot of warning signs. Guard is typically balanced to have a general GT win rate for most players of somewhere in the 45 to 48, just because it has so many tools that generally stronger players are better able to make use of. But a couple of the other warning signs is there are generally you don't expect very many people outside of, like, the top 5%, the 1600 elo plus. You don't tend to see very many people going X and 1 at events who are not in that group. It just doesn't happen very often. However, that's not true right now for guard. We are having a lot of people who are not in that, like, higher club, doing really, really well. And this is partly, I know there's a couple people who have not played in a while, so their elo is not very representative, but it's also definitely some people who I know are very active and are suddenly having a lot more success. So just kind of keep that in mind. Guard is looking very, very good. We have a lot of lists coming out overall. Grizzled is up to a 53.5% win rate, which, again, Guard is generally balanced to be around 45 to 48%. So the fact that we are 5 to 8% above that is a major alarm bell. We're also seeing a lot more people coming back to the faction. People who were playing, like, Chaos Knights like Ben Jurek, or people like Dom Maidlow who were playing Chaos Space Marines, and a couple other things like that. A lot of those players are coming back because of how strong the faction has suddenly become. Other big thing is you can kind of play whatever right now. So I did a bit of a breakdown, which I'm not going to be showing on screen, but there were 36 data sheets played this weekend at least once that went X and 1 or were played by a good player at a teams event. And they're kind of just, you can take kind of any combination that works for you. So if you like playing with horses, horses work. If you want to play with Bulgryn, Bulgryn work. If you want to throw in some indirect is good enough to play. If you want to play with big bricks, you can. If you want to play with small bricks, you can. If you want to play with Kazakin, you can. If you want to play with not Kazakin, you can. If you just want to spam Dorns, you can. There's a lot of options available, just in general, as we're going through this. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get into our first category of lists that I want to show you guys. Similar as what we saw last time around, it is 2 Dorns and 2 or more Vanquishers, aka how to anger the Brits. I throw this in here for Gustavo and Nassim in particular, 2 of the most vocal players about not liking the Vanquisher, despite the fact that they are consistently showing up in top placing lists. First one to show you guys is one by Roger Boyer. One of the stronger Spanish guard players that does pop up from time to time, getting third at the fourth Iberian Ham event that took place over this last weekend. He was, of course, playing Grizzled Company, and big thing about these like kind of lists is they just tend to have a lot of firepower, and not everybody can deal with that much tank, right? It's two toughness 11 or two or three like toughness 11 bodies, and then two toughness 12 bodies, and a lot of people aren't bringing enough firepower to deal with this. This is something that we can probably expect to change because of the number of Dorns that are being taken, the number of Catan that are being taken, and the number of Vindicators that are currently running around in the meta. I'm expecting people are going to shift more and more towards taking tools that are going to be able to kill these tanks. But for now, while we are relatively early into the meta cycle, skewing this way is having a lot of success. Roger ended up taking Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, Lord Solar, 10 Cadians, a Torox, one artillery team with the Heavy Mortar. I believe that's what the HM stood for. One unit of 10 Rough Riders, one unit of 5 Rough Riders, 6 Bulgryn, one unit of Kazarkin, a Basilisk, 2 Vanquishers, and 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks. So this is a very, very violent list. One of the big things that you look at with this is it becomes a little, it doesn't have a lot of the tools that a lot of people would normally just go have stand on their natural. So I'm expecting that the play here is you're going to first put out the Bulgryn onto your natural, you're going to advance them, and then the Basilisk can like screen your home field reasonably well, which will allow Lord Solar, the Cadian Command Squad, and the Cadians to move out a little bit earlier to be on that natural and play the game faster. Other big thing, of course, lots of firepower coming out from this side of the board. You have the Torox and the 10 Rough Riders as a couple of missiles that you can just go and kill things on your opponent's side of the board, kind of wherever they are. So very strong stuff coming out here from Roger. Roger ended up beating Thousand Suns, Cheat Stereo Cults, losing to Necrons before beating Dark Angels and Death Guard for a 4-1, getting third overall at the Iberian Ham. Next, we're going to be taking a look at Francesco Zapp at Conquest Showdown over in Italy. Now, this might have been on Games Workshop terrain. I believe most of the time Italy plays on WGC. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's something that is generally true. But this time we have Francesco Zapp, one of these players that I have not seen pop up very often, going with the Cadian Command Squad, Gaunt's Ghost, Lord Solar, 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 2 units of 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 5 Death Riders, a Field Endurance Battery with, of course, the Bombast. Every Field Endurance Battery in this video is the Bombast. Unit of Aquilons, 3 Luminous Vanquishers, and 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks. So, of course, the fact that you have 4 Lord Solar orders and 5 tanks does mean you have to be a little bit careful. You are committing yourself to using Snap to it a little bit more often than if you're taking the Rogaldorn commanders. But the 10 Rough Riders, you have a lot of push that way. This does have a couple of the main tool that I look at with this as to holding your natural is going to be those Catachan at first to absorb the first wave, and then you can push up with Lord Solar because you are screening with the Field Endurance Battery. Fairly similar overall. The Aquilons kind of pop in here as like a minor way that you can drop in and shoot stuff off of objectives. Big thing with the Aquilons here is they are kind of hard to order because especially the places where they want to go, you generally can't also fit Gaunt's Ghosts in those. So really interesting stuff coming out from Francesco, beating World Eaters, losing a Guard Mirror, winning 2 consecutive Guard Mirrors after that. So it's World Eaters, lose to Guard, beat Guard again, and then Orcs at the very end. So doing a good job winning in the Mirror. I can definitely see with the 3 Vanquishers, make Mirrors really, really easy. Simply because they have become so much more consistent. They're just going to do a ton of damage, and if you're going to be taking, you can take long-range shootouts with Vanquishers against like Rogaldorns or other Leman Russes that aren't Vanquishers, where generally like the first person to shoot wins in a lot of these extended shootouts, especially because the Rogaldorns, they do have like the Oppressor Cannon, which is d6 plus 3 at 12-2-3, and if you give Ignores cover, suddenly you can go up to 12-3-3 functionally, so you're going to be making Guard Tank save on 4, so it is possible for Dorm to just like clap a Leman Russ. I've seen it happen, I've done it, I've been on the receiving end of it as well. But the Vanquisher is going to more consistently, like, it just takes 2 Vanquishers if they both hit, and they're just going to do a ton of damage to a Rogel Dorn. So the Leman Vanquishers and the Rogel Dorn battle tanks with the blank so that your opponent's Vanquishers aren't as valuable in the shootout. I can see this having a really good time into multiple guard matchups. But yeah, anyway, good stuff from Francesco, playing 3 guard matchups in a row. Next, we have, this is a teams event coming out from Martin Cooper, one of the strongest players over in the UK. He's playing 2 Cadian Command Squads, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, a Scion Command Squad, an Ogrim Bodyguard, so that's going to be attached to one of the Cadian units, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 3 units of 10 Catachan, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bulgryn, a unit of 5 Scions, and 2 Leman Vanquishers. Not a whole lot new here from what we're seeing, it's just another combination of them. 2 units of 6 Bulgryn, you're going to attach the Commissar to the Cadian Command Squad, and 10 Cadians hang out on your home. The other Cadian Command Squad is your tool to just go very naturally stand on your natural. And then you have the 6 Bulgryn. One of them can play towards your natural if you need, but other than that, on a lot of UK and WTC boards, they generally tend to hang out towards the middle where they present a lot of threat. 2 Royal Dorns, 2 Leman Vanquishers, especially because this is in a teams environment, you can generally avoid really dumb shootouts, and also we tend to win a lot of them, or at least we tend to be favored in a lot of those shootouts. So just a lot of good tools overall. Martin got a 20 into Necrons, a 12 into Canoptic Court Necrons again, a 10 in the Guard Mirror, a 20 into Grey Knights, and an 18 into a third Necrons game. Big thing here, of course, is you do have a lot more OC, and the Bulgryn can oftentimes just charge into Catan. They won't kill them, but they will hold them in place for a little while, and you have enough tools to just get through them between all the different tools, and you just have a lot of fast OC running around on the board between the Rough Riders and the Catachan in order to be in places that you need them to be. So next, we're going to be going over to... I could have put Martin in either category because it has the 2 Vanquishers I decided to put in this category, but now we're going to be shifting over towards lists that are 2 Dorns and 12 or more Bulgryn. These tend to be a little bit more focused on just playing the midboard and not relying on as much just raw firepower to deal with threats on the other side of the board. These often play a bit more of a trading game, whereas these tend to play just pushing very, very aggressively into your opponent's side of the board and asking, I have a lot of Bulgryn, I have a lot more things than you do, what are you going to do about it? So the first one we're going to take a look at is, I'm sure I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but Caholan Wife, I'm not sure, at the second GT or Iberian Open, going 4-1. I have seen Caholan in the past, or Caholin? I'm going to go with Caholan. For now, until somebody tells me otherwise. But, yeah, Commissar, Abhuman Detail, Ganskos, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, Ursa Creed, 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, a Chimera, 2 Toraxes, 2 units of 6 Bulgryn, 2 Field Endurance Batteries, a unit of Kazarkin, and then 1 Scout Sentinel. So we are still seeing Scout Sentinels pop up from time to time in Grizzled. The reroll 1s is obviously not super impactful, but unless you get battle shocked. But just the fact that it is fairly fast and it's not like trivial to kill, you generally can't kill it with like bolter fire. You're generally gonna have to put something real to killing the Scout Sentinel. Does mean that some people are just taking it because it's fast, and this can be your option if you have 55 points instead of 60 points in order to do your turn 1 area denial and center cleanse or establish locus or anything like that. This does have a lot of stuff to play in the midboard, right? You have the Chimera, 2 Toraxes for the Kazarkin and the Catachan. And one of the nice things about this breakup here is you have some options. The Catachan are mostly just an OC dump, which is going to be going very quickly. But you could put the Kazarkin in the Torax if there's like a high priority target that you need to go kill on your opponent's side of the board. And you can choose what is in what based on how you're actually playing. The other big thing about this is the 2 Field Ordnance Batteries do put pressure on your opponent, especially into a lot of marine-shaped things. If you're trying to play up against a lot of, like, Blood Angels Death Company or Legionaries or anything like that, you're going to be putting a lot of pressure on a lot of these smaller things that will force them to come play against you. And so the way that Caholan went through this, beating Grey Knights, losing to White Scars, the new detachment there. Interesting thing about that is because the Field Ordnance Battery is generally going to take 2 failed saves to kill any bike, which are generally pretty common in the White Scars. I can see that being a little bit tougher. Beating Black Templars, beating Tau, and beating Drukhari. The field endurance batteries do absolutely shred Drukhari, especially into like the Hellions and the Reavers that are fairly common because they're a bunch of, I think they're 4-up save bodies, but they're toughness 4, I think it's 4-up save, maybe 3-up save, 2 wounds a pop. You're going to kill like 4 of them each time a fob shoots, and so you are just going to absolutely shred through a lot of Spectral Spite type lists. Also, they will kill Scourges really, really effectively. So lots of ways for you to deal with elves in the meta if you still have them. I don't know if it's a matchup that you really need to tech for, but having those 2 fobs will make that matchup much easier. Next, we have Eduardo Rinaldi, who got second at Conquest Showdown, the same event that we saw Francesco Zapp play in earlier. Eduardo Rinaldi going 4-1, losing in the last round. He has a Kading Command Squad, a Catachan Command Squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, an Ogren Bodyguard, which of course will attach to the Catachan Command Squad, a Rogaldorn Commander, 10 Cadians, 10 Catachan, which are almost definitely going to be doing their own thing, separate from the Catachan Command Squad, 10 Rough Riders, 5 Rough Riders, 3 units of 6 Bulgryn, 1 unit of Aquilons, 1 Leonor's Vanquisher, and then 1 Rogaldorn Battle Tank. So I do like this spread of armor coming out from Eduardo. 1 Rogaldorn Commander, 1 Rogaldorn Battle Tank, and 1 Vanquisher gives you the tools to kind of do a little bit of everything. You do have to be a little bit careful about your positioning because you don't have the Lord Solar to order the tanks wherever they go. But it is still just a lot of firepower. The Rogaldorn Battle Tank can play more aggressively on the board than the Rogaldorn Commander can, and so can the Leonor's Vanquishers. So you can generally leave the Commander a little bit further back at first in a lot of matchups, and then send the Rogaldorn Battle Tank and the Vanquisher to be that first wave of armor. But even then, you have 18 Bulgryn in this list. One of them is probably going to go hang out on your natural objective, but the other 2 create so much push on the board that a lot of people will not be able to deal with it. Eduardo played 2 Guard Mirrors to start it off, beating Francesco Zapp in the second round. He beat Imperial Knights, Chaos Demons, and then lost to Necrons at the end. It makes a little bit of sense not having the same kind of raw firepower, and it becomes very swingy trying to take down these the Catan and any other things that the Necrons are doing. It doesn't have this right kind of profiles to be really good into like a Necron Warrior brick. The Wraith brick is more annoying for this. Bulgryn came up as a way not to kill Wraiths, but just to hold Wraiths in place for a long time. So it doesn't have the same kind of tools to deal with the Necrons that we saw from a couple of other lists. Still, though, congratulations to Eduardo Rinaldi, one of the constant appearances, making it into the spreadsheet and into these videos, and getting another second place here at Conquest Showdown. Next, we have Lock and Load GT number 3 from Gavin Heritage, a player that I am not familiar with coming in, so congratulations for the first time coming into, I believe, the spreadsheet and the videos for sure. But Gavin going 4-1 at Lock and Load over in Scotland, a Kading Command Squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, Lord Solar, 1 Scion Command Squad, 10 Cadians, 2 Chimeras, 2 units of 6 Bulgryn, 2 units of Khazarkin, 5 Scions, a Leonor's Vanquisher, and then 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks. So, I'm not going to lie, this is a lot closer to how I would be building just kind of take-all-comers lists if I was going to be putting Bulgryn in them. The Bulgryn, the 2 battle tanks, and then you have the Khazarkin and Chimeras as well, which are just elite skirmishing pieces across the board. So it's just a lot of pressure on the mid board between the Chimeras, Khazarkin, and the Bulgryn. Scions can kind of pop up wherever you want, and then you just still have enough firepower left over. Gavin ends up beating Death Guard before losing to Death Guard in the second round, beating Sisters, Demons, and Blood Angels to close it out, getting second place overall. So well done to Gavin there. We're going to move on immediately to Games Workshop Open Palm Springs. Nearly 200 players going to this event, and Ben Jerk going 7-1. I believe he got 5th? I think he got 5th overall. He was definitely in the top 8. But 7-1, one important thing to note about this is Ben, if you're watching this, I heard that you would have changed your list if you had known the mission pack. So if you're bit of a bonus tip to anybody who's going to a Games Workshop Open, especially since I know there's going to be a GW Open over in Europe this year. If you are going to this, the way that they always do it is they will release, if you show up the evening before, they will give out the mission pack and like a set of cards at that. However, historically, list lock has not been until the morning of. You do not need to lock in your list until the first round you're about to play. So what you can do is you can go see what the mission pack is the evening before and then write a list to play that. So I know a lot of people will bring like 2,500 or 3,000 points worth of stuff in order to pivot between what kind of list they think is going to be better on the mission pack that they're actually going to release. Ben did not know this, and that's part of why he ended up bringing this list. He said he probably would have brought a sideboard, especially because of how shooting favored a lot of the Games Workshop open boards really were for this event. But let's go through it. Ben Jurek has a Cadian Command Squad with a Laud Hailer, which does absolutely nothing. It's just a way to fill 10 points. Commissar with Add Human Detail, Scion Command Squad with Aquilin Eye. I've had a couple questions about this. The Aquilin Eye order target weak spot, I think it's called. Target weak spot plus first rank fire, second rank fire is going to be slightly more damage into most targets than first rank fire, second rank fire plus take game. Whether or not that's worth 20 points is a different question. Ben thought it was. 2 Rogaldorn commanders, 10 Cadians, 10 Catachan, 2 Chimeras, 1 unit of 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bulgryn, 3 units of Khazarkin, and 5 Scions. Ben did say that 1 unit of Khazarkin was usually going to be starting off the board as kind of budget Scions or a rapid ingress threat. So you would have 2 turns of that between the Khazarkin and the Scions that were available. Potentially 3. You can't really do 3 in this detachment. But you did have the Rough Riders available as well that you could stay on the board or off the board depending on what you really needed them to do. A lot of good brawling here. Enough firepower between the 2 Rogal Dorns that you could put a lot of pressure on the board. And then you just have tools, right? You're just kind of good at everything, but it's not going to be really running over anyone. Because it is super good at like one axis of the game. It is a very good skirmishing list with enough firepower to back it up. So well done to Ben Jurek, beating Black Templars, Ultramarines, Grey Knights, Imperial Knights, losing to Votann, and then beating Deathwatch, Chaos Demons, and Sisters in the last couple of rounds. So well done to Ben on a 7-1. Next, we have a team event coming up, Gladiator Gaming Teams, being piloted by Joshua Wood this time around. It was a Cadian Command Squad, Commissar, Ab Human Detail, Lord Solar, 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 2 Toraxes, 3 units of 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bulgryn, 3 units of Khazarkin, and 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks. So of course, this is fairly similar in shell to the way that we just saw from Ben Jurek. Choosing to go with Lord Solar and the 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks does make it a little bit more resilient to some of those shooting matchups like Gladiator Lancers or Pulsar Executioners or Vanquishers, which have these like one-shot really big damage attacks. So the Rogaldorn Battle Tank is better able to deal with those kind of matchups. However, this is just a lot of stuff. You have 1, 2, 3 Rough Riders, 3 Khazarkin, 2 Bulgryn, so that's 8. 2 Toraxes is 10. 2 units of Catachan is 12. You just have 12 things running around the midboard. One of the things that you do see about this one is Lord Solar is probably going to be attached to the Cadian Command Squad most of the time, which means that the Commissar running around with 1 unit of 6 Bulgryn, a little bit more vulnerable to getting precisioned out by certain armies, because it is a massive reduction in damage if you do lose the fixed bayonets order on the Bulgryn. So just kind of something to keep in mind. It is a choice that you could make doing one way or the other. Lord Solar can attach, and then the Commissar can attach in other games, depending on how worried you are about that precision. Joshua Wood ends up going 18-2 into Drukhari, 18-2 into Grey Knights, a 13-7 in the Grizzled Mirror, 12-8 into Tyranids, and a 20-0 into Chaos Space Marines. So well done to Joshua Wood on just making sure that you're getting big wins into everything you played against. Next, we have the other big player who played at the Stratton Slaughter, Dom Maidlow, going 4 wins, no losses, and 1 draw. A Cadian Command Squad. Ooh, I don't think that number is right. I think Dom is a lot higher elo than that. But it's Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Ab Human Detail, 1 Scion Commander, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, 1 Cadian Command Squad, 2 Catachan, 10 mans, a Chimera, a Torax, 2 units of 6 Bulgryn, 2 units of Khazarkin, 2 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, and 5 Scions. So this is like somewhere between the like Doombolt list that we've been seeing people like Gustavo push and but it also has the Bulgryn in it. One of the big things about having the Bulgryn is it does change your matchup fair amount into like melee bricks as well as Drukhari. It actually makes your Drukhari matchup notably worse because the Bulgryn are kind of a liability. They actually get blended fairly effectively by witches and Lilith and other tools. So it allows our opponent to trade up pretty heavily in that matchup. However, it does mean that you can just go band for band with like Space Marines that rely on a lot of melee, a lot of damage to melee, like a lot of Death Company, Power Fists, or like Thunderwolf Cavalry or Custodians. A lot of these damage to really struggles into a lot of these Bulgryn units. He ends up going 19-1 into Space Wolves, 18-2 into Custodians, 10-10 into Guard. He actually played against Martin Cooper in the third round, so that was where that draw came from. And 18-2 into Votan, and a 20-0 into Eldar. So well done to Dom on not losing a single game this weekend at the Stratton Slaughter. Okay, next, other big category I want to show you guys is 3 or more Dorns. If you just want to play tanks, that is something that you can do. First one I'm going to show you guys is Sebastian Magnuson. Sebastian ended up going 3-1-1 the previous weekend, and this weekend getting 4-1, breaking it through to actually show up in the video. I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but I believe it's Skuvdi. That's going to be my best guess as an American. So Skuvdi, Battleforge. Sebastian ends up bringing 2 Kading Command Squads, 1 Silent Command Squad, 2 Ogryn Bodyguards. So you have both Kading Command Squads probably just running around on their own, being really obnoxious to remove. They're kind of like budget Bulgryn. They don't do the same kind of damage, but they do have the OC. They do have the ability to punch a couple of Marines to death, and they are going to be rezzing bodies in ways that are really obnoxious to remove. You have 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, a Cadian Squad, 2 Catachan, 1 unit of 10 Krieg, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 1 unit of 10 Scions, so not going to be the 5 Scions, it is going to be that big brick dropping and deleting really anything in the game. This unit, if you give it like ignores cover or lethal hits, or I think even Mordian Minute, basically just clears a unit of Victrix really consistently. 1 Cyclops, 2 Leman Russ Exterminators, and a Rogaldorn Battle Tank. So you have the 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, the Rogaldorn Battle Tank, and 2 Leman Russ Exterminators as well. So just a ton of firepower. The mid board is not going to be as damaging or like as skirmish heavy. The Catachan, the Rough Riders, and the Krieg don't do a ton of damage on their own, but they don't really need to. They just are going to move forward into the board and buy a lot of space, move your opponent's pieces into positions where we can then kill them with just mass amounts of damage 3 between the Rogaldorns and the Lemur's Exterminator. Sebastian ends up beating Tau CSM, losing to Deathwatch in the third round before beating Tyranids and World Eaters. So congratulations, Sebastian. I've seen your name pop up a couple of times before, and hopefully this won't be the last. Next, we have Scott Horace winning. I believe this was our only GT win this weekend at Hammer in the New Year. Scott Horace loves his Dorns. He loves his Dorns a lot. He ended up going 5-0, running Gaunt's Ghost, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, Ursa Creed, 10 Cadians, 2 Toroxes, 1 Field Ordnance Battery, 3 units of Khazarkin, 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks, and then 2 Scout Sentinels. It is worth noting that Scott is playing combined arms, not the Grizzled Company, which does mean your damage into other tanks is actually a little bit higher, even if they're on an objective. The lethal hits is slightly more damage into anything toughness 10 or higher than reroll hits. Reroll ones to hit and wound. It's a little bit more damage with the lethal hits. So a little bit better here. Output coming out from Scott. He does still have the Scout Sentinels to get a lot of reroll ones. This is very similar to a lot of lists we have seen Scott play in the past. The big change here is historically Scott has played 3 units of Khazarkin, all of them in Toroxes, but this time dropping a Torox and the Kading Command Squad, it looks like, in order to get a Field Ordnance Battery on the board here as well. So just a little bit of extra pressure. You do have enough tools to go hunt out different things with the Khazarkin and the Toroxes, but one of the big things to note here is you're generally going to be standing on primary relatively quickly in this army with your Rogaldorns and just asking your opponent to deal with a T12 2-up save, 5 OC body on an objective, and just punish them for trying to do so with the amount of damage you are able to put out. Scott ended up beating Ultramarines, Space Wolves, Necrons, a Guard Mirror, and then Necrons again in the finals. So congratulations to Scott on the GT win here. Next, we have one of the people that he played against, Clayton. Ooh, I'm gonna guess it's Grice, Clayton Grice, going 4-1 at the same event at Hammer in the New Year. This is a bit of a different style. This is very similar to some things that I have been practicing with, and I know Gustavo was playing with. It's somewhere between Doombolt Guard and the Recombined. You have the one Cadian Castellan with the Cadian Command Squad, a Silent Command Squad, an Ogryn Bodyguard who does run around with the Cadian Castellan and the Cadian Command Squad, two Rogal Dorn Commanders, one unit of 20 Cadians to complete the big 20 brick. Three Chimeras, three Khazarkin, three units of five Krieg Engineers. So you do have all of the extra mortal wounds coming around this way. One unit of five Scions and a Rogalborn battle tank. So big choices being made here is you do have the extra tank coming through, but you do have a lot of mortal wounds. So your skirmishing power is absolutely ridiculous, and you have plenty of firepower to follow it up. There are just a lot of moving pieces here, but it does create a lot of pressure on your opponent because they will not be able to control the midboard with their skirmishing or their light pieces for very long. That will very quickly go into our favor, and then we have the Rogal Dorns to deal with any of the big stuff that comes out to try to deal with the rest of the board. Clayton beat Tyranids, Chaos Knights, Necrons before losing to Scott Horus in round 4 and then beating Blood Angels for the 4th win. So congratulations to Clayton on a 4-1 and welcome back to the hobby. Next, we have Coastal Assault player Tyler Hammond, another player that I have not interacted with or seen before, running a Cadian Command Squad, 2 Rogal Dorn Commanders, Ursa Creed, 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Krieg, 2 Chimeras, 5 Rough Riders, a Field Ordnance Battery, Khazarkin, 5 Krieg Engineers, 1 unit of Krieg Flamers, and then 2 Rogal Dorn Battle Tanks. So one of the big things here that you're seeing is it doesn't have the same kind of hunting power as the way that Scott Horus was running the list. However, you just have a lot of you have more things, right? By not having to spend as many points on stuff that is going to be sitting at home, you are able to just put a lot of pressure on the board right away. The Krieg Engineers, the Krieg Flamers, the Khazarkin, the Rough Riders. This is much more of a like tit for tat style of gameplay coming out from Tyler than the one that we saw from Scott. But Tyler going with beating Sisters, Dark Angels, losing to Tyranids in the 3rd round before beating Salamanders and World Eaters for rounds 4 and 5, going 4-1 overall. So congratulations to Tyler. Okay, I have saved dessert for you guys. It hasn't been that long since we've had Robert Moreland show up in these videos. However, we have a brand new thing coming out from Robert Moreland. He has shown up on this channel a couple of times, but this time he's bringing a Storm Sword to the Texas Open, where he went 5-1. It's a Cadian Command Squad, Gaunt's Ghost, Lord Solar, 10 Cadians, a Storm Sword, and then he surrounds it with 3 units of 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of Krieg Engineers, 1 unit of Ratlings, a Cyclops, 2 Glimmer's Vanquishers, and 2 Rogal Dorn Battle Tanks. So it doesn't have the same kind of just like raw skirmishing powers we've seen from like other lists. No Khazarkin. Means that killing a lot of Marines is a little bit tougher with this style of play than we've seen some from other things. However, you go stand in really annoying places, and the free grenades and the mortal wounds coming out from Krieg Engineers does mean that you can do surprising amount of damage into just about anything that you're trying to deal with. So you have 1, 2, 3 Rough Riders, 2 Krieg Engineers, the Ratlings, and potentially the Cyclops. Just go stand in places to draw out your opponent, force them to interact with your damage as quickly as possible, and then you will be able to just blow anything off the board. The Storm Sword is the highest damage super heavy we have access to, and it actually does pretty well. It's one of the big winners in the Catan meta. So Robert ended up beating Emperor's Children, Necrons, Death Guard, Genestealer Quartz, losing to Dark Angels in the 5th round against, I believe that was Kit Smith Hanna, and then beating a Guard Mirror in the last round. So very exciting stuff to see Robert Moreland back on his super heavy. Not something we see a lot of people make work very often, but it does end up coming out to a 5-1 here in Texas. And that is the last list I have to show you guys. It has been a really big weekend yet again. Lots of good stuff working. Basically, so a couple of fun stats. Basically, every list is going to start with at least 1 unit of 10 Cadians, probably going to take a Cadian Command Squad because you're already taking the Cadian, so that's a big reason why we don't do it over the Krieg or the Catachan Command Squads in this spot. And then you kind of decide, do I want to go Rogal Dorn Commanders, or do I want to go Lord Solar Leontis? And then after that, you have to, you can kind of take whatever you want. Rough Riders, Bulgryn, Khazarkin, Krieg Engineers, Catachan, Scions, Cadian Command Squads with Ogryn Bodyguards, kind of anything works. With that, though, that is the last list that I have to show you guys. Again, if you are interested in talking to me more about it, go ahead and check out, or go ahead, send me a message on Reddit or Discord. I will not respond to comments in the YouTube videos. If you are interested in trying to get an invite to the Discord, the most recent password I believe is still I believe it's still Rough Riders is the last thing that we were using. So if you're interested, send me that on Reddit or Discord. Also, if you're interested in getting some coaching about how to play guard, if you're trying to switch over to the faction, if you're trying to learn more about it or improve your results in either your local games or at more competitive stuff, best way to do that, get a hold of me on my Discord. Easiest way for me to coordinate with you about what it is that you are trying to do with your career in the guard. For now, though, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the Meta Update. We'll see you guys all next time. Bye bye.